In this video, we're going to talk about a video streaming project using RTSP and RTP. We use RTSP and RTP protocol for streaming videos, and RTSP stands for Real-Time Streaming Protocol. This protocol is an application layer protocol, and it's used for users to play audio and video throughout the internet without downloading the files. And it's established between both client and server, and it controls the whole streaming between both sides throughout both sides. The RTP protocol stands for Real Time Transport Protocol, and it's a network layer protocol. It's handle real time traffic in the internet, and it's tasked to provide an interface to the RTSP protocol. The RTSP operations are used to regulate the stream, and they are generally used like a setup, play, pause, and close. HTTP get operation is used to get the session description, which is established between server and client. Setup operation will use to allocate resources between server and client, and start the RTP session for the streaming. The play operation will start the streaming after the RTP session is created, and a pause operation will pause the streaming in the RTP session, and the close operation will terminate the whole RTP session and free the allocated resources. Now we are going to discuss about the code we implemented. In the code, we use this main method to server side, and in the server side, we take a port number as a input in the terminal, and create a socket. And after creating socket, we binded it with a IP address and given the port. The server will listen to a client request after creating the socket. While it's listening to the requests, if a server gets a request, it will accept it and run the or and execute all the requests by this run method. So, class, we use this start method and run method to run the whole server work, and initialize the states and operations of RTSP and RTP protocol. Now, after running the whole thread, we going to call this method receive RTSP request. It will listen to the RTSP request and parse the data and decode it using the UTF 8 standards. After the parsing the data, we are going to process this data and splitting it into variables like file name and others, first by new line by line, and then after splitting to the spaces. After we retrieve the data, we are going to execute the request, and if the initial state is uh, initial, and we receive the setup request, it will set up the RTP session by using video streaming, and set the state to the ready. And after setting the state, we are going to initialize a session ID and reply a RTSP request. After that, we are going to retrieve the transport from from this uh, variable. If the request is of play, then we going to check that if the state is ready, then we are going to create a socket and establish the connection between them, and run the whole communication using this thread. And if the request is pause, we are going to set the thread as pause, and send this send this RTSP request. And after that, in case of tear down, we are going to terminate the whole thread and send a reply to RTS. In case of sending RTP request, uh, we are using this method that will uh, set the this method going to send the RTP packet, and for that it's take a RTP packet and after create the RTP packet, it's going to send RTP packet throughout the network. For making that packet, we are going to use this make RTP method. This RTP method will encode the fields which we are given, and after it encoding, it will create a packet using a get packet method. After after we created the packet, we are going we are using a reply RTSP method. This method will reply RTSP request to the client, and this request will be given in this format, and it will encode the whole request, and later on it will be decoded from the client side. For the RTP packet implementation, we use this RTP packet class. In this class, we use a method for like encode to encode the whole data data field given in the input, and it will encode the header and a payload at the same time. And in this decode method, we decode the whole packet into a header and other payload options, other payload data. After that, we are using video streaming. For video streaming, it's use file in IO, and after that, it's it it's divide the whole file into frames into 5 bits, and it will set the frame numbers, and it will return the frame numbers by this method called frame and. On the client side application, we use launcher as our main method. In the main method, we first take argument of server address, server port, RTP port, and the file name. In this execution, after taking input, we created a GUI name root using TK function. TK function is used from Tintera library, which is used for creating easy GUI in the Python. After creating GUI, we are going to call a client method to run the uh, client function by giving the we are going to use client method to run the client code after giving the inputs, and after that we are going to run the GUI main loop. In the client implementation, we use a PLI, which is stands for pillow, and it's a image processing library for Python. In the client side, the main method is initialize, which is used to run the whole client method. Uh, in this client method, we use create widget to run the GUI of our program. After creating GUI, we use setup movie, exit client, pause movie, and play movie as operation function of RTSP protocol. After that, we use a listen RTP method to receive the RTP requests from the server. This will decode the RTP requests and execute later on. After that, we use a write frame method to create a cache to execute video streaming. After that, we use update movie to run that whole video. And after that, we use connect to server to create a port and create a create a socket, and then uh, bind them using a socket method. After we you send our RTS request, which will send a RTS request as it says, and this is the request format of the RTS RTSP request. After sending the request, we use a receive RTSP request, which will first receive the RTSP request and parse it. After parsing it, it will decode it and execute later on. In the parse RTS reply, we split it line by line, and after that we split it by same spaces. After parsing it, we use open RTP port. It will create a port of RTP, and by using socket method, it will create the port. After creating port, we created a handler method. It will handle the GUI and execution of client method. And it will uh, terminate. It manages termination and pause and play execution of the code. Now we are going to run the code. For running the code, we are going to input to server as given below, and we are going to input client as given below. Now we are going to run the server, and now client. After running client, as you can see, we get a GUI, and after giving a setup, as you can see, both client and server will get a reply. And after establish setup, we can play the video. As you can see that after pressing play, server get a request, and at the same time, uh, the client will send a request. After start playing, server will send a sequence number to the client. And as you can see, here we get a sequence number, series of sequence numbers. And after we press pause button, uh, uh, client will send RTSP request to the server, and here server will get RTSP request. After that, we can see that it will we can pause and play the whole video, and after tear down operation, it will terminate the whole session. Uh, as you can see, we implemented whole RTSP and RTP protocol video streaming using this code. Thanks for watching the video.